Third, what we're going to be doing here is talking about Automic and Kubernetes. So the Kubernetes integration agent. But first, let's say, what is Kubernetes? Kubernetes is a platform that you can launch on a virtual machine. And what it will do is it will dynamically deploy, scale, and manage all your images, containerized applications, microservices, anything along those lines. Now, how does it integrate with Automic? Well, we can execute command jobs, scale deployment jobs, and then run jobs. Now, something we'll talk a little bit more about later on this topic here is the difference between Kubernetes jobs and Automic jobs, because there is a difference, but we're going to be saying jobs in Kubernetes and Automic a lot. So you're going to have to stick with me here for a second. And I'm just going to show us again, the marketplace. So this is exactly where you can find and see everything that I'm talking about. As mentioned, the overview with the video, and then what Kubernetes is and how it integrates with Automic, then the features that it's given us with the documentation here and here, what the versions are, and then the compatibility matrix, also with the download there. Okay, let me start with this. What we've been showing you is kind of hello worlds, this is how you use the integration. This is the basic, as I said, hello world of using Azure AWS. Well, what we've done here is put together a real world scenario of using Kubernetes. So don't worry, we'll also be going over all the integration and jobs along with Kubernetes, but we'll also be saying, hey, this is how you could potentially use it in your workflow. Quickly, we're just going to talk about what is this workflow doing? So we have an exist. We're going to check if a file exists in the cloud, our Azure for instance in this case. Then we're going to download that down to that Linux box. And then we're going to read it with our Unix agent, read that file, the contents from that file into Automic, store it as a variable, and then pass it to our Kubernetes job here. Now, what it'll do is take that variableized content, put it inside the job description of a Kubernetes job, and then run that job on our Kubernetes instance on a different VM. Lastly, over here, we have our scale deployment. On top of that, Kubernetes, so it has containers, nodes, pods, and jobs. Now, this scale deployment, what it will do is look at all of our deployments, and a deployment is similar to a container. We have a deployment, it's an image, and then a container is how many times, or it's what's storing that image, and then we're scaling that is how many containers we have. So in this instance, we're going to have 3 or 5 deployments, and then we can scale it. We're scaling it here, and then we are sending a command with this job here to all those pods, and then we can get some information back in the report. So what we can do here is we're going to look at the exist job, just showing off what we have going on, the connection to our Azure, the container that we're using, as you can see, then the blob name, which is kubedeploy.yaml. And so Kubernetes uses YAML, Helm charts, and JSON, I believe, as well. Those are all options. The YAML and the JSON are how you deploy jobs. All right, then we can download. So we're going to download that, all stuff we've seen before with the Azure. We're just downloading it to where the Unix agent can read it, read the contents of that file. Then we're going to read it with this script here, store it into this variable, and then on our run Kubernetes job, so this is where we're getting to the Kubernetes jobs, we have our connection to the Kubernetes agent. This is not to the agent. This connection object connects to where the Kubernetes lives on a different virtual machine. The agent is not where the Kubernetes is. The agent is where the Unix and Azure and AWS agents are all on the same machine there. So this is going to connect our agent to that other VM that holds the Kubernetes instance. Now we have namespaces here. So in this case, we're using default. We also can run something on the system if we would like, and then we have a few other options as well. In this case, we're going to use default. So default and the namespace that we're running them on, this is going to be containers that are inside of here will be used to run the job. So then we have the job name. So the job name is something that we can use to keep consistent in Automic. Now, if you're familiar with Kubernetes, oftentimes the jobs don't always have the same name, because you're not going to, if you want to have the same job run multiple times at the same time, you can't have them have the same name. So in this case, what we do is keep a single source of truth at Automic, and then in here, what we can do, so this is where we're deploying that YAML content from the Unix read. And so we're able to dynamically deploy a different Kubernetes job based off of what is in our Azure instance. Here's these types here that I was talking about. Oh, wait, it looks like JSON, YAML. If we had a file location, we could do that too. And then SCM if we like. Okay, lastly, what we can have here is a variable. So what I can do is say seconds. And then if I want to say, okay, let's just wait for 45 seconds, then all I'd have to do is place wherever I would like to use this variable inside of the job definition. I could just place seconds and I can have a single source of truth right here on Automic with the variables. Lastly, if you like Kubernetes to clean up the job for you. So if the job ends, do you want all that information wiped away and cleaned up, or do you want it to stick around? Sometimes you want those jobs to leave a little bit of information or connect to other instances, which is kind of defeating the point of Kubernetes, but hey, we all have instances where that is necessary. All right, so that's a little bit about the run job. So running a job in Kubernetes. And just to clarify, in case I maybe forgot, or just in case to really drive home that point, Automic jobs are living here. They're going to be running things in Automic. A Kubernetes job is another job type that we're going to send over to the Kubernetes instance, and that will run information and then report back to the Automic job. So they're two separate things, but they're connected by how Automic is using them right here. Now, as mentioned, we're looking at a scale deployment. So we can see the default and then the deployment name. Default, as mentioned prior, we can see all the namespaces that we have available and then the deployment name. So this is showing us how many or what deployments we have available to us and then how many replicas are showing of that. So those are the containers that we were talking about earlier. So this is on this one, we have 3 containers. Now we can scale this. So if I wanted to say put 5 here and save that, and go back, we can also look at, then what we'll see when we run this is 5 returns from this next job, which is the execute command Kubernetes job. And so what we can do is same as before, connection namespace. We're looking at all the namespaces. Now the command that we would like to run in all the pods. Now I have selected all pods here. So this is going to run on all the pods that is running on that Nginx deployment test that I had previously just shown you. We can use a label selector and field selector to prioritize which deployments we would like to interact with. Now by clicking any pod, we can also select which pod names we'd like to point out and the container name that we would like to point out. All right, that was a lot, but let's see what happens when we run it. So when we execute this, I might have been a little bit too slow on that. Oh, perfect. Okay, so yeah, we saw it existed in the cloud, we downloaded it, then we read the file contents, and then we gave it to that run job. And then after we can see that this job is still running, now what's going to happen here, and the reason it's not done running is because the job we're passing to it, I think if I remember correctly, it runs for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, this job is going to end with an okay ended normally status because the Kubernetes job is going to report back to this job here, and it'll say, hey, I ended perfectly fine, no issues, and then we'll see that in the report. Now, what we have here is a scale deployment. Remember, we had set that to 5. Previously, it was 3. If I right-click on here and open the report, we can see that we have 5 different commands listed here from those 5 different pods. And this is the output of that command that we gave it. And so that is a little just about the Kubernetes integration.